It's gone. All right. Well, anyways, all right. Welcome back to another week, folks. This week in search, the usual crowd here. I guess we'll go from the left. Kevin, say hello. Tell everyone who the hell you are.
Hello, Kevin Dory. I am the. I don't know why I looked over there. The camera's over here. I'm the director of SEO for Dealer On, and I do a lot of local SEO.
Simple enough, Mr. Doc.
Doc Sheldon of Intrinsic Value SEO and Search News Central. I do mostly technical SEO. Play around with some WordPress customization.
Play around. Wow.
And I won't call myself a developer, but I'm not just a plug-in junkie.
Well, you should see some of the people I've had to work with. So I think you're doing this. You're a pro now. So, Mr. Plunkett, sir.
Muted.
Yes, sir.
Just say hello. Tell everyone who you are.
I'm Steve Plunkett. Let's see, ORM person, online reputation management, SEO person, meta tag inventor, etc., etc., etc.
I like it.
Fortune 5 SEO, yeah. Big.
I would just go and mad scientist myself, but okay, well, I can look at that.
All right.
I still always just see you in one of those, ruffled hair, white, the white
gamers.
coat.
Hashtag gamers. Fortnite #1 battle royale.
All right, Tim.
Yeah, follow that.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Yeah, that's all right. So Tim Calling, a servant's heart, web design and marketing, and mostly work with local businesses, do a lot of local SEO, ORM, and just try to get them more people calling to generate more revenue for them. Any way I can.
Kim, say hello. Tell everyone who you are, what you do.
Kim Crossberg. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can't tell with my headphones.
Not our first time this week, man. First time.
I know, it's weird. Creative Vision Web Consulting is my consulting business. Owner of Creative Site Forums up until May 25th.
Get to still say it for another week.
But
you can still call it. You can still go former. You know what I mean?
Former. Its future is completely up in the air right now. But I specialize in website usability testing, accessibility testing, and site audits. But I was an SEO. Started out as an SEO, so I'm in the SEO club.
And I'm not sure Terry's with us yet, so I guess we'll have to go with Terry Van Horn, SEO Dojo, SEO Pros, and I missed the third one. What's his website builders? Come on, somebody.
International website builders.
Internet. Thank you very much. Brain dead. I'm old.
Terry can pay us later.
Hey, yeah.
There he is.
There he is.
Yeah, it's not working very well. The camera's not working today for some reason.
Shall be missed.
Yeah.
All right. So what's new this week, folks? I don't know, Doc. I don't keep as much an eye on the drama the last couple of months, but did I hear that there was another Danny and Rand blow up or something? Title tags or something?
It wasn't really a blow up. They were arguing a little bit. What the heck was it? Kevin, you remember?
Title tags. I think it was title tags or something. I remember coming across it and just didn't.
No, I didn't see it.
It was the description. It was the change in length, I think.
Oh, was it?
They're back, didn't they?
I knew it was something they were going to. That's twice now.
But it wasn't a blow up. They went back and forth half a dozen times, and there's some other folks involved. But for them,
I think it after. I guess after the last one, the first one they had together since Danny left, that I guess everything now is exciting and everyone just there's shit lost.
And it was on Twitter, so I think a lot of people missed it.
Well, there was another one. What was it? Yes. I'm sorry. The ability to auto-generate content for web, blah, 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 blah. Roger Monti, we all know Roger, I'm sure, wrote that Google released some papers. Your first mistake, because papers are not even close to a patent, which means it's not even close to being used. How they can create original articles from your content. He links to 2 papers, blah, 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 blah. And so then, obviously, somebody decided to go after Danny again on Twitter or somewhere. That kind of all blew up. But it is funny because literally, I remember a patent or two about that kind of stuff back 10, 15 years ago. And even Doc, even in the graphic I used for the actual article, had 100 monkeys on 100 typewriters. You know?
Yep.
So yeah, it turns out it's just a Google Brain project on how to use artificial intelligence to generate stuff. But somebody finds a paper by Google, and all of a sudden they're using it. They're stealing your content and they're auto-genning their own.
Mm-hmm.
And that freaked out a lot of people again.
But the problem is, I guess, to me, is that all of the big boys, from your Facebooks to your Microsofts to your Googles, have papers on this stuff. They have been talking about it. I mean, they've looked at this stuff for 10, 15 more years. And so it's just funny when, Roger, somebody finds it and throws it up somewhere without the proper, as Bill and I would say, disclaimers or caveats or whatever. I mean, you never say a patent is being used. It maybe, could be, possibly. You know what I mean? And it's, again, does that come down to editors? They're Doc. I'll throw it to you, Doc, since you have a stable of writers.
What I have found,
to make sure there's a caveat in there, an editor's note or something. Or
what I have seen is that even when you put a disclaimer in there, saying that this is conjecture, or this is strictly a possibility, there's no evidence to show that this is happening. A lot of your readers are not going to see that. That's not going to register. They're simply going to go and quote it and say, the writer says this, or Google is doing that. People, critical thinking skills are a thing of the past, apparently. The unwashed masses just don't bother with it anymore. It's just so much easier to let somebody else do your thinking for you than actually turn your brain on.
Well, yeah. I think there's also a much higher flow of information than people were dealing with in the past.
Sure.
We're just like overwhelmed with the tsunami of information, and so people are. I mean, I'm personally, I'll just say, I'm less likely to remember whether it was a paper or patent or toilet paper or whatever the heck it was. I remember reading it, and then that might later on be triggered, when I'm thinking about something else, and I might forget.
Well, that's because we're old, Tim.
Well, that's true.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
This is Medicare month for Tim. I'm celebrating. No more $1,000 a month health insurance premium.
Just again, generally breakfast. Go ahead. Breakfast. I'm with you. But generally speaking, Tim, it's kind of a they write a paper about some ideas. You know what I mean? And then they play with it and test it and throw it at the wall, see if it sticks, and then through a handful of papers might finally get put into a concept that they put a patent application on, you know what I mean? But even that patent application, who God knows if it gets used, how much of it, what thresholds, et cetera, et cetera. So, to get excited about anything, I understand what you're saying about not caring, but to me, if you're going to start spouting off in Search Engine Journal or on Twitter or where the hell ever, then you should have some grounding. So, to look at a paper and not, read any of Bill's posts about patents. I mean, it's like, he'll say maybe, could be about 12, 15 times in that thing just to make sure he keeps reiterating it. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I learned to write about them.
Oh, he's trained as a lawyer too. He knows how to be, cautious.
Cover your ass. You got to cover your ass. Yeah.
I saw something. I think it was at the Cambridge Library, a study that was done several years ago that said that they estimated. I think it was around 70% of the patents that were filed were never acted upon. They're exclusionary. They put the patent up there just to make sure that somebody else can't do it.
Well, that's it. It's just a blocking technique. You know what I mean? Yeah, for sure.
Or make sure that they get paid if somebody does.
In 1996, that's why I did the Meta thing, so we could stick it in. So we could stick it in the core of several search engines and just let it run, and no one's going to complain, and there's nothing that anybody can ever troll. But at some point, there was a standard, and that was.
Well, in this case, if you go back and you start thinking, okay, part of the Google Brain project. Then again, yeah, you know what I mean? If you're teaching your child to speak, I think one of the first things is they have to learn to listen, right? They have to learn words and actions that relate to each other, so on and so on. So if you think of it on a cognitive level like that, Google Brain is listening, meaning reading information from the web first. It's getting it brought to it. So now I would assume, again, I haven't read these papers, so I'm not really going to jump in there, but you know, to a degree, I understand the concept that you want it to start to speak back to you, create it. Like, how well is it learning? If it's an artificial intelligence thing, you know, Doc, you and I spend a lot of time with Google Brain, right? And so you got to think at some point, isn't that a great way to test it, Doc? Is to see what it can create on its own, you know? Right.
Can I ask a question, a tactical question? I notice when I read news feeds, like from CBC or wherever, they have a meta tag. They repeat the meta tag in a blurb at the top of the article. And
well, it's probably the opposite. They probably have a system that's pulling the top 200 or whatever words.
Well, no. Wait till he's got 4 variables he needs to finish.
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead, Steve.
and then they repeat it again in the first paragraph. So are they doing that to ensure that Google or try to ensure that Google is pulling that as the description for the article?
Okay.
No, more than likely, one of two things is happening. That whatever proprietary system they've developed is pulling the first, because you can set it in the admin, pull the first 250 words for the meta description or characters, whatever. So that could be option number one. Option number two, did you check the source on the page? Because if they don't have a description in there, Google might be pulling the first 200 characters. So you'd have to check the source on that.
You already checked the source, right? You already viewed source and saw it was repeated, right?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I haven't done it in a long time, but yeah.
So there's a meta description, then there's an open graph description, then there's a Twitter summary, and it looks like 3 of the same paragraphs in a row, doesn't it?
Right.
Okay, that technically is improper usage of meta, and what they've done is basically put one meta description in, and they're using it to populate a Twitter card field and an open graph field. An open graph would be like Facebook, Google. Whenever you share something, the normal little pop out with the designated image and the designated paragraph about what that article is. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Steve, I'll bet you it's just auto pulling all 3 of them.
Well, I mean,
they're just been, well, you know, because he's talking a news site, so a news site doesn't really have people sitting around writing meta descriptions a lot. So
if you want to beat them, make sure all 3 of yours are specifically different. And if you're repeating the first part of the title and the first part of the body copy, that's also a relevant signal.
Right.
So you got to look at how that framework is. And if I've got the same meta tag 3 times, pretty much you not only did Google only read it once, but they devalued you twice because you're spamming and you didn't have unique content. But a lot of people do that, so they just ignore it. Does that make sense? If 100,000 people just let that run all the time, then Google says, "Oh, they don't want us to count all 3 of them. There's the same thing every time. They do it. Okay, so this is one of them. Put it in that category of just read it once and that's it." Make sense?
Right.
Okay.
But they're doing it to ensure that's
no. It's actually a disadvantage as opposed to a benefit. The fact that the same meta tags for 3 different locations. My Facebook call to action, my Twitter call to action are going to be specifically different than the call to action I want to have happen in Google. So those 3 opportunities for unique user relevance are not being used. Therefore, they're being spammed. Therefore, Google says that's not right. So you want to beat them, do the same thing, but you have unique stuff in those 3 spots for the 3 different things. You become more relevant because you're addressing more users. They're just spamming.
Also, Steve, is that a WordPress site by any chance?
Yeah, probably.
No, he's talking CBC. It's probably proprietary, and I'll bet you it's .NET or Microsoft or something. Terry, what do you think? CBC? I'll bet you it's a Microsoft platform, wouldn't you?
It could be, but here's the thing. I disagree with Steve because all the testing I've done is the only way you get your own description used is if you match the query in the meta description. Okay, so that could be why they're doing it. That's why I would do it.
Well, no, but so what you're saying is that descriptions are query dependent.
Terry and I agree. Okay, Terry, I agree with you. Okay, 2 different schools of thought, but what you're saying, I completely agree with you. Add that to what I'm talking about and factor both in. We're on the same page. Next,
Can I
I
interject?
just wouldn't worry about, well, I don't even put the Twitter crap or the open graph crap in anymore because both are irrelevant. And I don't want anybody going to a Twitter feed because all the baloney it attracts.
You're focusing on the user. Good job. Sorry, go ahead, Kim.
I was part of a team years ago that trained the Gannett reporters at several major newspapers across the country. And what we taught them was that they could, and this is before WordPress, okay, so we're going back a little bit. But what we taught them was that they could change the meta information based on the reactions to something like their headline. Certain words attracted more traffic than other words. And they literally were like, we could live, we were doing this live with them, post an article of like the school shooting that just happened. And certain words would generate more traffic, death versus killings versus whatever. I don't know if changing the stuff on the fly even works anymore, but that was what we trained the news people to do.
I don't work a lot in news, but I would imagine that, you know, the news niche is volatile enough. I would think it would still be close to instantaneous, at least on major news fonts. You know, the NBC, ABC, CNN, something like that. They're almost constantly crawled in news.
And we were aiming for, I mean, we could literally prove to them live in the workshops, here, try this, see what happens, now try this. And then the reporters were just like, whoa. And that was all just, you know, in the meta information.
So if you're populating your meta information with PHP on the server side, it you know, Google doesn't see that. They just see what comes to the browser, right? So it's got to still work.
Well, if it's a PHP, okay, you can programmatically do PHP includes to where, for example, let's say we're talking about Lincoln, right? And so we have different size crossovers, and this one's the mid-size, the full size. So we can repeat those variables based on those pages. We can pull this part of the title. We can put this part of we can populate what's called a slug. Like the URL would be mid-size SUV, right? So we can populate that slug as a keyword phrase, but with different capital letters. We can put it in the title tag here. We can put it in the meta description here. We can put it in the first part of the keywords field. We can put a variation of it in the last part of the keywords field. We can then put that also in the H1 tag. We can put that in the top of the body copy. We can then put it as the anchor text on the website to link back to that page. If you're going for a certain specific phrase of Lincoln midsize SUV, this is what I want. Now, at the same time, I'm not only getting the branded search queries of Lincoln, I'm also getting midsize and SUV. I would also use like CUV or crossover or different variations that people would search for based on language and people use. You can do that by going into Google AdWords, finding volumes and trends and Google Trends and use that. I would say use Google because that's the way to find out. But then you use that to populate the thing. Now, what Kim's talking about is as a story was updated or just as you search for something, it would serve different pages based on the way that Google was serving that information, because the web server would serve a flat file and alter its keywords based on search volume instantly. And there was a computation between those two things. And then I remember this, Kim.
Yeah.
I remember this stuff.
It was almost like a tag team. You'd have somebody, you know, on the one hand editing and another person looking to see where the action was. And then it's like, okay, change that word. Boom.
So does that answer your question? I mean, the thing is the best thing I can say is provide uniquely relevant results for Google dependent on where you're trying to target the user. The Facebook user, the Twitter user, the Google searcher, the Google Maps person, the YouTube person, they're all going to have a different thing. View, read, learn, different action verbs. Use call to action, because basically your meta description is the call to action. Your title is, this is what this page is about. This is who this is from. And there's a set thing of what's the search term? What is this? This is a part of this category from this company, this URL. Your URL is your data record. Back then, we didn't really care about the URL. Google just pulled whatever was linked from the front page on a Gannett website. So it would display that, as opposed to now, because of social media and because of sharing And because of that signal, the URL is still the most important thing there is, because it's going to be a record of that text. Now, if you go and update that text, the keywords you used in the last run of Google are saved in a database. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying? Because they attributed that meta description with this page before, and now the new one doesn't contain that keywords, but during several 100,000 searches, it did contain those previous keywords. So now that URL is now relevant for the other terms, even though they're no longer in the meta description. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah, I think what Steve was asking was where things happen. So when a page gets indexed, the rendered page
Right.
gets indexed.
Right.
The source code is crawled. PHP code is never seen.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
That's what
So-
you got to keep in mind.
So is it possible? It's not possible now to know the search query that generated the SERP that the user came to your page from.
No,
That's blocked now. isn't it?
right. They quit serving. They quit sending the keyword.
But again, if you're looking at what these guys are talking about, that's also, volume dependent. Meaning, if you're getting enough volume, like these guys are talking about, like a news site that's crawled every, 10 minutes, you can play little things like that. You've got enough search volume to get some actionable sort of insights. But, if you're talking 1,000 queries coming to that page per month, you can't really, mix around and play with that as much and get definitive answers. No, obviously over time you can. Like you still
One
do
way
it,
that you could break
like a form of split testing, I guess, really.
One way you can break it down is if you're doing PPC, you can look at the breakdown there, and that'll give you somewhat of an idea of the keywords.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a news story that has a 24-hour news cycle. What if you threw up a whole bunch of different headlines into social media with different keywords, and then you measured where your traffic came from, and then you change your title based on what you get, and it has to be automatic, right? This is something that has to happen automatically, because we're only talking 24 hours, and then that story's dead. It's gone.
Yeah, but the search is performed on Twitter versus it just coming by your face. Think about how you use Twitter. You scroll. It's like it comes by your face. So you're not really looking for content. You follow people that have certain types of content, and then you click on that story. So a lot of times that's not really going to be representative of correct keyword information doing it that way. The thing is honestly, figure out if there's a way to think about it. Think about you're a business and someone is calling your business asking for a product or a service, right? So if you're 24-hour news, what is the story that I want? I want the story about the Texas high school shooting. So that's the thing is I want the Texas high school shooting thing. And so now that I've seen the news story for the Texas high school shooting, I know that that's what people are going to do. But also people are going to put in Santa Fe high school shooting, because there's two different concepts. One's going to see Santa Fe, Texas, and some people are going to see high school shooting in Texas. So now we know that we need to have those things. And so basically my title would contain one format of that query. My meta description would claim the call to action version of that query. My H1 tag on the web page would have the most consolidated version of that query. And then the number one in terms of things where we think that people would ask for, we would want that to be the first part of our sentence in the paragraph. Does that make sense?
Yep. So it's basically just the way we're doing it always.
Think human user, think of specific information, think of getting specific information to different parties. Okay. How do you get what people ask for on the phone? If you've got a receptionist for SEO for a business, you got a receptionist, have them make hash marks during a week of what people ask for. Well, I had 90% sales call and 10% whatever. Okay, well then maybe sales calls need to be split up to more different people instead of throwing them all to one lady who can't keep up with all the work. What's the workflow, right? Same thing from a website. If I have B2B queries on this end and I have B2C queries on this end, which ones am I targeting? I'm going to want 2 different avenues to take that customer in, because the B2B sales cycle is more than likely going to be a longer sales cycle. So my call to action is going to be different and more informative based, as opposed to the B2C, which is going to be instant, call, buy now, hurry, save money. Those kind of different calls to action for your keywords. Follow me? Buy versus shop. Same thing with news. You know, people don't put in, I want to read about, I don't want to learn about, I want to watch, or okay, YouTube, give me information on. So information about, information on would be a leading keyword to a news story that would help your search query as well.
All
right, so let's do something else for fun. What else are we running into this week? Guess host crowding is domain crowding. Depends what we used to call it. People call it different things. Anyone's seen a lot of, like, again, remember we've gone through the years, you've seen, like, you know, we used to see 2, 3 listings, 4 listings from the same domain. Then it was like the indented ones, and it went back to the, you know, full-on ones. Been seeing a bit more domain crowding on some query terms these days. And I'm curious about that. Anyone else seeing that?
Yeah, I don't think they're doing any kind of filtering for domains anymore.
Yeah, it's called, well, in the IR papers they called it host crowding, right? But,
okay, host crowding. I used to call it filtering domains, whatever. Just they haven't been doing that for a while.
I saw one the other day. 1 and 2, and someone else was seeing 3 of a domain taken with spots 1, 2, and 3, and then, you know, my person being there at 4 or whatever, or 3, depending on the query.
Yeah, which kind of means the question in the dojo yesterday about having 3 websites is irrelevant, because they'll give you more than 3 listings. They'll give you as many listings as you can get ranked for.
So I guess my question is that a sign of a weak query space, or is that a sign of a strong domain, or 6 and 1.5 dozen the other?
I would say 6.5 1.
Yeah, I would say yes. Depends on. I didn't mean to say depends, but
it's a great man with
half an hour. And yeah, but it
dependent.
It depends on whether or not you're. Yes, never mind. I'm going back on mute.
No, but okay. So, you know, you probably running that there here and there as well in your market. Yeah. So, like, what's your plan of attack? You know, are you going to create more pages and promote them internally to give them more equity, or, you know, look at the data first to see if that's a relevant query? Is it worth fighting? Do you want to go to that battle in that query space, or not? I guess is my first question to myself is, you know, let's look at the data, and is that a query space worth fighting over? You know.
Yes, and same thing. It's like if it's the size of the market, and maybe it's not a query that you want to go after versus. Maybe we have a lot of clients who are in tiny areas, so they completely dominate. If there's 8 car dealers in a metro area, then they're going to own more of the surf space than if you're competing in Dallas, where there's 8 car dealerships in a 5-block radius. So it's being able to adjust the strategy according, just like you said, Dave, according to the data. Like, does it make sense to go after this, or can you already do it by just doing our standard?
Yeah, you know, this is it's a kind of a smaller market, I would imagine. Well, it's good money, but it's, you know, it's just not a lot. It's a technical expertise, so there's just not a lot of people that do it. You know what I mean? So, but I just watching it for the last 1.5 years. You know, it's funny. Like, it's almost like the SEOs on working for each of these companies are watching each other. You know, because it's like, okay, this term started going up. I'm like, well, what the hell? These people are going after this now. So then the client's like, we should go after that. And I'm always the same thing. I'm like, well, let's look at the numbers. But, and then it'll move and they'll all go here and then they'll chase. It's so funny because it's like they'll put more equity and they're kind of chasing different, like there's maybe 10 or 20 core terms, you know, plus stemmings, plus, you know, whatever. But it's just funny to watch that you can almost sense the guy on the other side of the screen going, okay, we're going over here. Shit, he's going over there. I'm going over there. And it's kind of funny to watch. Everyone, you know,
it feels like they're playing Battleship Like they're playing
Yeah.
Battleship against each other. Like where are you targeting versus where am I targeting? And we try to do it from a seasonal standpoint and understand that as the data will show us that as the seasons or as we're going, we expect it to go more over here and then more over there, and try to be like one step ahead of where they go. But also, in some situations, we're all fighting for the same terms over and over again in each market. So it's a different, because we're stuck in one vertical.
But it's also like, you still, unless you get something massively viral or something, you still have the same amount of equity you're playing with a lot of times,
Yeah.
So it's who's moving there, who's shuffling the deck, which way to go after which terms. And I just find it kind of amusing at times. I'm like, oh God, like you said, it's almost like Battleship with the other SEO team on the other side,
Or like watching a group of 7-year-olds play soccer, and all the little people go over here, and then they all go up here.
Bumblebee soccer, Tim, where you're like, the only two kids on that soccer field are the two goalies. You're like, yep, I can see those two kids. Everybody else is just a mass.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's funny, I'll get those emails like, or even in my own reporting or whatever, I mean, I keep a pretty good eye on competitors. I just think it's important. I always want to know what the competitors are doing, where they're going, what moves they're making, and did they add links? Did they add contact? Are they going after new terms? Are they changing title tags? What the hell are they doing? You know what I mean? So knowing that is important to me. And when I see this, I'll put it in my reporting, say, okay, so-and-so apparently has decided this is the term they want to go after. They've been moving a lot of resources into this area. And again, when I say, for anyone watching, whatever, when I say term, I mean like all the stemmings, all the semantic relevance. I call it a key, a semantic basket. Right, you've got a core term, and then you've got all your, the semantic basket that surrounds it. So yeah, when they start to move like that, I'll mention the client and say, but I'll say, don't, get knee-jerk reaction about it. Don't get excited, because there's really because we run, lots of PPC on this stuff too. So like Terry was saying earlier, I've got PPC data, I've got everything else to say, let them go. They're wasting resources. You do that, So.
Right, and how many resources are you going to devote to trying to catch them, just so that when you do catch them, they're probably moved on to something else. So it's with us, we do a lot of competitive research as well, but from a different perspective, because our competitors of our clients could end up being our clients down the road because of the space that we are in. So there are some other factors in that, like we know the habits of, so I can tell by who their website platform is on. I can tell who's running their SEO and what they're doing, or more importantly, what they're not doing, because I know the guys on the other side of that screen. Like I know they don't do this, so I know if I do certain things, we'll jump them in a matter of time because we do it differently than they do it. It's just when you're dealing, I think that's one of the benefits and the drawbacks, but it's mostly the benefit of dealing with big companies is that like they know how we do it, and if they don't change what they do, they're never like, what we're doing is working because we have it set up differently than they do, because they have less of a mindset for local for a lot of them.
And again, I think that, not even big companies, once you become intimate in this space,
yep.
You know what I mean? Like I've got medium-sized clients, but I'm intimate, like I've got 2 years in or whatever, in that space. So, I know the big three or whatever, you know what I mean? And those ones you're really watching, The little guys, they crawl up a little bit here and there, but they're never really a threat to us, so. And you are kind of always watching the guys on the other side. And I think it's important. Like, again, you can approach SEO from just, your best practices and whatever kind of view. And I think that's awesome. But I also, I guess, after 20 odd years, I learned to keep an eye on what the other side's doing, or at least the important people on the other side,
The influencers.
What's that?
The influencers.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what I mean? Like in most, even, and I'm not talking like, mom and pop, like, dry cleaners or something, but, even medium-sized businesses are, if they're at the top of their food chain, which tends to be the people I end up working for, you tend to, after, a year, 6 months, even like know who the big ones are and that the big dogs in the space are. You know what I mean? And those are the ones I'm really watching more than anything. I keep an eye on the, the second tier, but, they kind of flow up and then go down again.
That's actually what I spend a lot of time, if we're going to use analogies, is like or sports analogies was like the way English soccer is, where the bottom three go down and the top three go up. A a lot of times I will look at the middle movers more so, because in my space, but in my practice of my craft of being an SEO, I try to look at I know the big boys, but I also pay attention to the ones that are doing enough to move, and what are the other ones doing that are.
And those are the ones I like, because they might be innovative. They might be coming up with something that neither of us thought, because we're playing it safe and we don't want to take a risk.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that's why I like those. You know, when those middle fish start coming up and nibbling at our toes in a handful of query spaces, that gets my attention.
Yeah, where did you come from? How did you get here?
Yeah, I want to go and see what they're doing. You know what I mean? So I'll look at their social programs. I'll look at their content programs. I'll look at their link building program. You know, I'll go and start looking to see. And I'll tell my client, and they'll pay me for it. I'll be like, listen, I think we should go see what these guys are doing. You know, they're not a direct threat to us right now, but let me go spend 5 hours, 6 hours trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Because yeah, when they start nibbling at your heels a little bit, again, they might be taking risks that we wouldn't. So you know, who knows?
I normally don't ever really look at competitors until after I've already fixed all the problems I have on the client's website.
Again, that's I'm at but I'm already at that point in this situation, dude. It's 2 years in. I'm 2 years in. If you think I can't fix everything in 2 years, come on.
It's
more of a strategic play now. It's social content strategy, email lists, CRO, all that stuff is kind of where I'm at with this. I'm not doing a hell of a lot of SEO, technically speaking, on that project anymore, unless Google changes something and I have to go and look at stuff.
Yeah, it's more analytics, metrics, and webmaster tools. I mean, Google My Business dealing with this stuff.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, that's the point it's at after 2 years. So yeah, I am watching that sort of ebb and flow of the market itself in that particular industry, right? So, which is a great place to be. That's my favorite place to be. Fuck fixing websites. It's fun, but
True.
More fun doing split testing and CRO and fucking playing with analytics and chasing people's tails, I guess.
You almost have to become a recovering technologist, though, because of this fun factor. Websites and website changing and developing, you get instant gratification from. You do something and it works, and you have to sort of learn to step away from that and let somebody else do it, or have somebody else do it.
Well, that's why I have my lovely development team, and that's why I love analytics, dude. Even on my own work on that site from a year ago, conversions are up about 120%, et cetera, et cetera. I still look at month over month, but I also look at year over year. And a year ago, I was, on the job. And so, as long as things keep trending upwards, traffic is up. Conversions
I married a social worker. What am I going to do?
I'm almost after 2 years. After 2 years, Tim, I'm almost competing with myself now.
Yeah.
Or am I making them more money than I did a year ago? I'm almost competing with myself. Am I converting better than I was? Am I bringing more relevant traffic as opposed to just more traffic? Am I, have I done the job on page with the CRO stuff?
In some cases, you sit, if you're looking at least at analytics information, and at first, if you produce this big, increase, everybody's happy. And then at some point, you've saturated the available market almost, and you start to go, steady state. And
right, but that's what I mean. That's where I, many years ago started to get into the CRO, conversion rate optimization stuff, because you can plateau on a query space once you own all the top queries.
Yeah.
You can obviously use content to go and grab longer query terms and whatever, but at the end of the day, you just want to convert those big terms, right?
Unfortunately, when you hit that plateau, though, a lot of clients will stop seeing ROI.
Or at least they think.
Yeah, but see, that's why I do split testing and shit like that as part of our service now, because that's when I transition from one to the other,
Yeah.
And then if I can show them that, like, I increase conversions through split testing on this one page, I've increased, conversions by 8%, then that shows an added value to the service,
What are the challenges? Go ahead.
When there is a PPC campaign and it's not converting, and you guys have done absolutely everything you can think of, do you get blamed for it not converting, or do you recommend that like an audit be done to find out if the problem is somewhere else?
Well, essentially, I don't do PPC, so I'll go first and say that they're stealing my money, meaning give me the money. So yeah, no, I'll shit on the PPC people, and I do it regularly with clients, and I because I keep tracking in analytics of not just when I report every month. I don't just report on what I do. I report on everything. The social team. I report on the PPC guys. I mean, I'm putting numbers in front of my client every week because every month, guess what? These guys aren't. So, which is your first problem? Why isn't the social team showing, hey, we grew, this and that? Why isn't the PPC team saying, hey, we grew this and that? They're not even tracking these numbers or reporting them. So it kind of pisses me off to start with. So I always bust their balls with my client and say, listen, let's review it. Let's keep up their ass. Let's, put a little poker under their, feet to keep them, working at it. As for actual PPC people, I don't know. I'll let the other guys talk about it. But
I have the same
I
problem.
always recommend an audit, man. If I see underperforming stuff, and I do track that for my clients, when I see underperforming categories and things like that, I say, listen, so I got one client that Doc and I know that's throwing away about almost 10 grand a month there, Doc, on a couple of their campaigns
for no return whatsoever.
Yeah, zero conversions on like 6 grand on one, 3 grand on another. It's like, why is because you want to throw 10 grand away every month, just give it to me. I'll go drinking at the bar, like, you want to, and then you won't have to deal with reports and stuff. So, me personally, I watch PPC, I don't do it, but if I see stuff underperforming time and time again, obviously I think it's an audit time. And again, I'd call Terry or Steve or somebody who knows about that stuff. I wouldn't do it. But.
Well, the reason I ask is because I just got an audit request from somebody who's dumping what you said, just like tens of thousands of dollars into the PPC campaign. And they said, Kim, can you take a look? And the first thing I discovered was that their target market can't pay for their products. They can only look at them. But the target market is 16 and under. They don't have credit cards. And that is the only way you can buy this stuff from the website. So
that's just nonsensical.
Totally blew them away when I said that.
That's just nonsensical. Man.
Right. So all that money, that whole strategy is like, wait a minute, and then they say that they sell internationally and they don't ship internationally. So this is just stuff that I found.
Well, I've always believed that well, I haven't always. Sorry, it's my buddy Terry here that beat it into my head 10 years ago. Is you make your client more money every month, and sometimes that's not making it; it's saving it, right? You know what I mean? If you can save them $2 grand a month, that's just it helps. As Terry taught me, your longevity as a provider. I mean, as long as I'm either making the money or saving the money or a combination of both, then they'll keep me around. You know what I mean? I think as providers, that's something we always need to pay attention to.
One thing that I've noticed about PPC is they get paid on the spend, so they could care less about conversion.
Yep.
So that's number one thing that I always look at. I even came across where when a certain threshold was reached, a bogus PPC plan that did nothing but drive the budget up was put in place. Luckily, I was in competition with that company and took the contract by telling them this is what they're doing. I think, and to what we were discussing earlier, I don't chase keywords. I chase audiences. Keywords are very limited. Audiences are infinite. They're as infinite as what's between my brain and what I can think of. I go after audiences that nobody else in my sector has, and yet anybody who's incorporating in Canada has to do this if they're outside of Canada. So, but none of the competitors are doing it. My chief competitors are lawyers and other very expensive professionals. We have very small service we can give them, but adds to the bottom line. And the industry they're in has very limited shelf. In other words, I look at keywords as inventory, and they have very little inventory and a lot of competition looking for that inventory. That's how I stay. I'm always, okay, the industry is office space, and in my market, I'm 15% ahead of Regis in visibility. Basically because I go after audiences that they haven't even thought about. Yeah.
That shows your experience.
One thing about PPC, I always charge flat rate. I don't charge a percentage of budget because I don't find it takes a whole lot more to do a bigger campaign. But one concept, two concepts that clients don't seem to understand. There are a lot of people out there that will click on your PPC ad because they don't know it's an ad. To them, it's just part of the SERP. And people just don't even understand that those are ads, and it costs people money if they click on them. That's the first thing. The second thing is I've had two clients where they think that PPC is somehow they can push their branding through PPC, and I say, this isn't netting you anything, and they're like, well, my phone number's there, I'm promoting my brand, my name is at the top of the SERP, and I'm like, oh no, it doesn't work that way, and so
disagree.
You think you can brand with PPC?
As you said, people don't see that they're ads, and most people click on the number one result.
Right.
Yeah. And if they're mobile, they're more than likely going to click on it from a phone number standpoint, trying to get it to do something.
Yeah,
so
you got to really think stuff like that through. Just saying.
Well, it's expensive branding then.
What is? And sometimes
I can tell you that it works really well, because for that to come up, someone is searching for your brand. So you want it to come up. It also generally
Steve,
I'm not that really cheap.
It should be cheaper. It shouldn't be that expensive.
Doesn't matter.
Your brand.
Yeah, well, because they know about it. But anyway, Steve, literally, it's called brand lift. If you want to Google it sometime, but it actually works. Like, there's been many studies done. Even if you're number one organically, okay, having it doubled up, it imprints apparently on the user's mind that you must be the person to go to because you're there twice.
That I understand.
Yeah, that's all. That's called brand lift, and yeah, it works, man. It's been shown to work. It is what it is.
We used to call it free PPC back in the day. You get the third spot on the right. You have the number one spot because they didn't have ads over them. So you were number one with a bullet, but you wanted the third spot because as their eyes went down, they saw you. They saw the next result. They looked right. They saw you. And then clicked on your top result, went through, which also leads to Terry's part about people clicking on their own name in PPC. So go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, Paisley, man, for sure. I've seen so many studies people have actually done it and on brand lift, and it works. Just a fact of life, you know what I mean? So.
Also, if you're running organic at the same time, you should be looking where your results are in the SERP and put the ad so that it's in a lower or higher position, so that if you're in the top and the bottom of the page. That means you're always in sight.
Right. Oh, I see. So if you have the number one position organically, you may want to be position 5 in the PPC.
You want to be below.
Well, if I show you a collage of pictures of different animals, and they're all different except for 2 lions, odds are you're going to remember a lion from that picture. I mean, it just increases the odds. It's the same concept. You're getting in front of their eyes because those multiple listings, even if one's paid, just seems to work. So, human nature, go figure.
How many people are like me and we're like, no, I'm not clicking on the paid stuff. I'm going to go down reward the
Depends.
people who actually worked for it.
Depends,
That's a
depends
good.
on how bad of a
I
boot
know,
up
I
is.
don't know, Kim. Sometimes
I click
can't
on
believe
the
them.
other ad on purpose.
If they've been remarketing me and following me all
Yep.
around the web, oh, I'm clicking on that crap here. Couple
Yep.
bucks more for you. How about a couple bucks more?
Yep.
Stop following me, man. Oh, I
Or-
keep clicking.
Or Kim, if they give me a crappy user experience, sometimes I'll go back and click on the thing, and I'm like, you could have just given me like, your UX sucks. Thank you for not giving me what I needed.
$10. There's
Yep.
$10. There's $10.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. That sounds like great.
Yeah, you start remarketing to me too much. That's it.
Yes. Or you start remarketing to something I already bought, like
Yeah,
Emacs.
love that one.
Emacs,
Yeah.
I bought your ticket. Give me a different cookie. Turn it off. Okay, well, $10.
Amazon,
$5,
too.
$3.
Yeah, why don't they do that? I mean, why is that not standard that when you finally check out, the cookie changes?
Because they're lazy.
Yeah.
We talked about this a month ago or
Yes,
so.
we have. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that back up, but I was like,
I figured. Yeah, we were.
I
we were
gave you
doing some of it.
$500. Leave me the F alone. Like I'm
But
trying.
yeah, it's just laziness. It's actually it's not that hard to implement. So who knows?
My problem with back to the PPC is that like we have a PPC department, so like when we can work together, things are fine. But we more often run into PPC stealing organic traffic and trying to explain it to, like, we'll have clients who are like, hey, your organic numbers went down. It was like, well, yeah, but the paid numbers went up. So like you didn't increase your number of leads. It's just your source was over there. And that's a delicate system. It's much easier if they're not a client doing pay-per-click, because then we can say that like you don't necessarily need to bid on those terms because you're already accomplishing it with the organic results. Why pay for something you don't need
Well,
to pay
they have to be above you, Kevin, so you can tell them they're paying money for stuff that they don't need to.
Exactly. The only time it gets a little hairy is when it's the other room, and it's like, oh, that's why we're trying to get a better cohesive. Because when they work together, it's perfect. Because then let paid in our industry, let paid go after the stuff that we can't touch organically, and let me do it, and we'll divide and conquer, and everybody will be happy. The problem is we might have marketing folks who promise things that we can only do in paid if we do certain things, and that's the last thing I'll say on that, because I'm just going in circles. But I agree, Ted.
Out of Google, you run a paid campaign, right, Kevin?
What?
How do you get keywords out of Google? You run a paid campaign, right?
Yeah. That's why I don't talk about paid anymore. Call Rockville. That'll be fine.
Why don't we? What about schema? I mean, okay,
Oh.
Kevin, are your competitors using schema properly?
Oh, yeah, they are. I don't want to talk about schema. Like we're using it fine. It's just the problem is lately it's been sold as something that is really bad. This is more meant for. We'll talk about this when we go off air.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard this part. I've been dark for a couple months.
I haven't mentioned this part before just now, so this is what you get on a random Friday. So
Random Fridays. That's what we're calling the show from now on.
I'm muting myself. I haven't seen Plunk in it forever.
All right, so come on, Kim. Is usability SEO?
Yes. Yes.
You know, Jim Hedger tried to pull this crap on me in my interview.
Okay, I have to. I got nothing else.
Thing.
I got nothing
The
else.
Canadians are sneaky.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my theory.
Very closely.
To start with, I don't buy into the school of thought that what's called implicit user feedback is any kind of real serious kind of signal with Google, meaning time on page and what people consider usability. You know what SEOs think usability is, right? Bounce rate. Right? They don't quite get the rest of it. So I'm not a fan of that. But see, in my mind, usability means a good experience. Something that was just touched on, so I guess we're segueing. But
you gotta finish the sentence.
Good experience is not link building, because people will link to your site some way, socially or otherwise, if they have a good experience. Is usability itself create visibility? You know,
or who?
I think it does.
Terry's on it with the audience.
Yes. Dave.
Yeah.
Because usability is, okay, I didn't account for this user in search, so therefore I'm going to add more content and target that user because now I know more about my audience. Everything's about the audience. The more I get about that, the more I know about the audience. Right, Terry?
Yeah, that hence neuroscience is getting fed into it.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, that I love it. But how we use our phones, where we use them, why we use them, who we are, how old we are, all of that stuff plays into usability and user experience.
Which makes it kind of funny because really that becomes sort of a umbrella over all of us. The social team, the SEO team, the PPC team, everybody.
Inclusion. Right? Think inclusion. That's the new word now.
See, because to me, that becomes an umbrella that helps everyone. Right? The more shareable, the more usable, the more functional, the more entertaining, the more educational the page, whatever adjectives you want to throw at it. The more you work on that, to me, I've always found that it increases, rises all boats.
What
if somebody says accessibility, I'm leaving.
Who? Accessibility? Been fighting for us, hourglass contact lens wearers forever.
Come on, Tim. I'm almost playing local lately, so just leave that there, though.
Well,
no, that's enough.
We'll talk about accessibility.
That's a whole other show.
Another day. Yeah.
Well, that's life in California, so never mind.
Well, or the U.S. actually.
Well, yeah. So yeah, how do you pitch that stuff, Kim? Like, do you pitch it from a conversion standpoint? Are you pitching it from a, floats all boats standpoint? How do you really approach people about it, optimizing usability?
Standards and conversions.
Conversions, yeah.
Yeah, definitely conversions. What happens is most of my audits I do are for SEO and digital marketing agencies because they hit a brick wall. So then I go in and can find the problems either in the information architecture, the target market, mobile testing.
What do you use for target market data? You're trusting the client, doing your own research. If so, what tools? How are you getting demographic information? How's that?
It's a combination of their data if they have it. My 50,000 years of expertise, and knowing how people do stuff. I have research out the wazoo. User personas. I have a client now that I've just done 6 user personas for them, and each one is going to respond differently to their product and their website. So how do you design for that? Taking stuff out. I do functional testing as well for software apps. User testing. These are all like the steps that should be done during development, and most of the time they're not. So if it breaks, it shows up in my lab. And then it's my job to say, okay, well, this is why you're not converting. The form doesn't work. They can't see it. They can't use it. There's like a whole lot of reasons.
Why isn't the SEO finding that?
I totally get you. Yep. A lot of this stuff is so obvious. It jumps right out at me, and I don't understand why they haven't seen it. But there's also guidelines. Like as soon as mobile came out, the way a form is laid out changed. The form labels went on top instead of to the left. So, it's just little things like that increase the ability to fill out a form on a mobile device. Make it easier for them to use, conversions go up.
Yeah, if you're not programming the mobile forms, they look like crap and they're almost unusable.
Right.
If you're just grabbing a gravity form, that is going up crap.
Right. A lot of designs are made by graphic designers. They're not usability people. They're not, user experience developers, and they're certainly not human. You're right. They're not human factors. So and those templates, the WordPress templates, they look pretty. Bootstrap, you can tell a bootstrap a mile away. They all look exactly the same.
The problem that I found, Kim, is almost every one of the themes is based on Bootstrap, but they just ruin, you know,
They
take
butcher
something
it.
so simple and make it so bloody complicated. You know, now when I do a site, I take all the pages off of WordPress and build them myself outside of WordPress using Bootstrap. The code goes down by 1,000%. In other words, you got like 1,800 lines going down to a few hundred. And that can be done, you know, that's including writing things out 3 times so that you've got every device size covered. Right. You can't do that in most themes. Most themes are just putting up a responsive thing that it just moves stuff one under the other. But if the guy who did the theme didn't really look at it in mobile, it looks bad.
Uh-huh. And what's funny is when they market them and they say SEO friendly, and you're like, no. But this is my world. It's fun.
Well, that was that, folks. Well, there you go. Well, anyone else got anything? 2 o'clock. Before we wander off to the green room and talk to real dirty people.
Yeah, I need to get back to work, but I just thought I would drop by.
Oh, always a pleasure, dear. Thank you so much. 2 weeks in a row, Kim. So awesome. You know, I go 20 years without actually seeing your face, and so, you know, it's kind of fun.
I know, it's a little weird, isn't it?
Exciting. Yeah. You were just this entity in my mind up until then.
And who the heck is Create PC?
Yeah. All right, folks, we're going to sign out for this week. We'll still be in the green room. Anyone wants to get the link for the green room, they're on all the channels, so feel free to join us. Till next week, folks, thanks for dropping in.
Good seeing you guys.